Welcome back to the Movie Recap Master. My name is Joshua, and I'm going to tell you a scary story in a moment. Beware! It awaits you. It starts in a lake house, where a girl named Teresa is sitting by the water and listening to music. Suddenly, a guy named Caleb pops out from behind her, making her jump. Teresa gets angry when Caleb starts making fun of her, so she tells him to go check on his sick girlfriend, Jessica. Caleb tells her that he has already given her medicine and she is resting, so there's no need to worry. After that, Teresa walks into the cabin and sees Jessica sleeping in the bed. Teresa sits down in a nearby chair and starts reading Wuthering Heights in a quiet voice. Jessica starts reciting lines from the book in a strange voice, which scares Teresa when she sees her sitting in the bed. A few minutes later, Jessica falls to the floor, and Teresa rushes to check on her friend, but out of nowhere, a possessed man appears. Even though Teresa is hurt, Jessica rips Teresa's hair off her head. Teresa crawls towards the dock to tell Caleb about the horrible thing that happened. When he sees her in this state, he is shocked. Jessica grabs the drone and cuts her own face with it before falling into the water. Caleb is confused by this turn of events and jumps into the lake to save her, but he ends up being mutilated underwater. Now, Jessica throws Caleb's dismembered head towards Teresa before emerging ominously from the depths of the lake. Ellie lives in an old flat in Los Angeles with her 3 children. She works as a tattoo artist and takes care of them. Danny, a wannabe DJ, Bridget, a wise daughter, and Cassie, the youngest. Just then Bridget gets a knock on the door from her neighbor Jake, who has a crush on her, but she turns down his offer to see A Nightmare on Elm Street. Shortly after that, Beth shows up at Ellie's house, and it turns out that the parents are estranged and have a hard time getting along. Beth gives gifts to everyone, but when she takes out a gift for their father, everyone seems upset. Ellie then sends her 3 kids out to get pizza and tells her sister that she and her husband have been living apart for a while. Beth is shocked by this, so she asks Ellie why she didn't tell her earlier. Ellie replies that she left her messages twice but didn't get a response. Beth realizes her mistake and apologizes to her sister, but Ellie is still angry. Meanwhile, as the kids are coming back with pizza, a huge earthquake hits the area, leaving a sinkhole in the parking lot. When the ground stops shaking, Danny explores the hole and finds an attic inside the garbage. He sees several holy relics guarding specific items, such as the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, aka Book of the Dead. He decides to take the book back to the apartment, believing that their mother can sell it. Bridget is against this plan and claims that their mother will not cash something he stole, but Danny is adamant. On top of that, he also grabs some of the vinyl records he finds with the book. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Ellie is concerned about her kids and almost goes off with her neighbor Gabriel to find them. However, the kids soon return and Ellie embraces them tightly, feeling relieved that they are safe now. Danny and Bridget enter the room, and while examining the book, Danny cuts his hand and spills some of his blood on it, which causes the book to open. They come across some horrifying pictures in it, which scares Bridget and causes her to close the book. She tells Danny that she doesn't like it and that he needs to put it back right now. However, after she leaves, Danny plays the records which mention the terrible potential of the book as dictated by the priests. These priests went against the church to study it, but suffered the consequences that came with it. Now Danny becomes fearful and tries to stop the record, but it continues to play, and as he watches in terror, the pages of the book begin to turn on their own. Meanwhile, as Ellie returns to the elevator carrying her belongings, we notice a sinister force approaching their building, and just when she steps outside of the elevator, Ellie is attacked by an invisible demon and the elevator begins to plummet, causing her to pass out. When she finally regains consciousness, she feels a sharp pain in her head and tries to get away, but the unseen demon starts tormenting her by cruelly tying her up with the elevator wires. To add to the horror, the power goes out, and Bridget tells Beth that it seems to only be affecting their building, while Danny checks the fuse box and Bridget lights candles. Ellie comes to the apartment while being possessed by a demon named Edits. She goes into the kitchen, turns on the gas, and starts throwing eggs into a frying pan, some of which are filled with blood. Her family is horrified by this, and Beth tries to figure out what's going on, but Ellie starts acting strangely and talks about tearing her children apart and climbing into them. Ellie suddenly throws up fiercely and falls to the floor, which gives the children a moment to see the real problem. Ellie comes back and tells Beth that a demon has taken her, and she begs her to save her children. She then collapses, and after checking her vitals, the family realizes that Ellie has died. Danny and Beth try to take Ellie to the hospital, but they find that the lift is broken, making it hard for them to get there. Beth asks her neighbors, Gabriel and Mr. Fonda, to help her put Ellie to bed. Mr. Fonda goes to find help. When Beth feels guilty about her relationship with Ellie, a voicemail from Ellie saying that she is burning plays on her phone. When Beth looks back at Ellie, she sees a fly in her eye, and Ellie wakes up with a blink. Just then, the kids come home and see that their mother is still alive. Beth tells them that Ellie is burning, so they try to put her in a bathtub filled with cold water. Ellie then rolls her eyes and jumps back up against the wall. Ellie comes out of the bathroom with a shard of glass and tries to attack Beth. As they fight, the glass breaks. Pierces her hand as she tries to protect herself. Bridget steps in and begs her mother to stop making Ellie lash out at the girls when she is angry. He hurts Bridget's cheek with a tattoo pen and tries to lick it, but Danny uses a chair to knock her down, causing her to fall into a dark room. After that, Gabriel comes home, and Ellie attacks him. Eventually, they both leave the apartment, and Ellie bites Gabriel's eye out before throwing her down. Beth locks Ellie out, and she keeps banging her head on the door. After a while, she calms down, but Beth sees Gabriel suddenly stand up and beg for help, but Ellie shows up and digs at his throat. Mr. Fonda shoots Ellie with his gun, but she hits him, which actually hurts him. Later, Bridget asks Danny if he thinks his mother looks like the pictures in the book. Danny says it's Bridget's fault, and the two get into a fight. Beth steps in to calm things down, and Danny says he wants to show her something. He gives her the book and tells her everything about it. In the meantime, Bridget notices that her wound is changing color and getting darker. She also panics when black blood starts dripping from her face, and when she tries to wash it off, she throws up an enormous swarm of insects, which scares her. Ollie finally gets Cassie to open the door. As soon as she does, Ellie grabs her by the throat, but Bethany stops her. Danny comes to her aid, and Beth manages to lock the door again. Soon, they hear noises coming from the kitchen, and when Beth walks in, she sees Bridget huddled on the kitchen counter, chewing on a wine glass. Bridget laughs and spits in Beth's face, which makes Beth stumble backwards. Bridget then crawls towards her and cuts her leg with a cheese grater, but Beth manages to knock her down. Bridget then attacks Cassie, and Danny ties Bridget to the bed and then feels bad because he is to blame for the whole mess. Danny gives Beth the book and vinyl albums that he thinks are the cause of the chaos. Beth then goes into a room by herself to listen to the recordings. As she listens, she hears the priest talking about how he had to kill his possessed colleagues because he had no other way to stop them except to cut them up. At the same time, Bridget gets up and walks out of the room to kill Cassie for good, so Danny pushes Cassie to safety and stabs Bridget to protect in a last-ditch effort. Danny sets Bridget on fire, but he gets hurt very badly. While this was going on, Deadite Ellie sneaked into the apartment through the air vents and attacked Beth again. When Beth leaves the room, she finds an injured Danny and Cassie hiding under the table. Danny apologizes to Cassie before taking his last breath. While Ellie has Beth pinned down, she finds out that Beth is pregnant and nearly rips her apart. Luckily, Cassie manages to slide a pair of scissors towards Beth, which lets Beth stab Ellie in the nose. After this, Beth and Cassie make a last-ditch effort. Beth takes the pistol away from Mr. Fonda right away, and we see Ellie take the scissors out of her nose. Just as Beth is about to blow up the fire escape door, Ellie attacks them, forcing Beth to shoot Ellie in the leg. This Ellie gets up and tells Cassie that Beth is trying to keep her from her mother. Cassie, on the other hand, says that she knows the woman is no longer her mother. After that, Beth shoots Ellie's arm off as well, but the dead neighbors now rise as deadites and can't find a way out. Beth puts Cassie in the elevator and locks her in. The elevator starts to fill with blood, and all of the deadites start to come out with Ellie by tearing through her limbs to form a hive body. At this point, the elevator is full. Beth tries hard to wake up Cassie, who is asleep, and is pleased to see that she is still alive. Deadite tries to cut off Cassie's head with a chainsaw, but Beth stops it just in time. It then turns its attention to Beth and tries to grind her with a mash. The two manage to escape by crossing under the closing park gate, but Deadite drags Cassie with it. Ellie's severed head tries to control Beth, but since her sister has already died, Beth kicks it into the machine, killing it quickly. Cassie cries over the death of her family, but Beth stops her and takes her out of the building. The next day, we see another resident of the building. At the beginning of the movie, we see Jessica getting ready to leave for her vacation at the lake house. She's about to drive away when she notices the signs of yesterday's tragedy in the parking lot. The demon then chooses her as the new host, and the movie ends with Jessica screaming at the top of her lungs as a mysterious entity attacks her. Thank you